Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel V. Hill, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Coffee Break. Rachel is out today, so James Merlot and myself will take you through the next 20 minutes. Hope your day is off to a good start. And James, someone who's probably having a good day is Coach Prime and Shedeur Sanders. After stealing the show yesterday at Media Day in Las Vegas, there were so many headlines, which always happens when Coach Prime gets in front of a microphone. He couldn't believe his press conference was over after 25 minutes. It's like, well, Coach, 7 other coaches have to talk as well. We got to keep this thing on schedule. What stood out the most from you from, once again, the Buffs getting national headlines after talking to the media at Big 12 Media Day?
You know what stood out to me? And look, Coach Prime was his normal self, right? He was holding court, and 25 minutes went by in the blink of an eye and all that kind of stuff. But when he was talking about North Dakota State, the opening game, it's like what, August 29th? It's on a Thursday night, ESPN game. The nation will be watching. I think it might be the first college game of the year. And he showed a little humility, right? Like a little, it wasn't just trash talking. It wasn't billboard material. It wasn't how great his team is and how that's a lower level school and they should run all over him or whatever. That stood out to me because the rest of it, that's just Deion doing what he does, right? And I signed me up for it. I love it. And as a Buffs fan and a graduate of CU, the fact that they're getting any attention, let alone this kind of attention, is amazing to me. So I'm all in. But that's what stood out, Will, because that was the one thing that seemed different is I think the 4-8 season, I think the 1-8 finish, I think the fact that they, had their chances to be a bowl team but couldn't quite pull it off. I think it was a bit of a humbling experience. So that was certainly one thing that stood out.
Well, let me reset kind of that answer for you, too. I wrote about it at denversports.com. He talked about how he was mad at Rick George for not giving him a layup in week 1. The North Dakota State Bison have won, 9 of the last 13 FCS Division I national titles. I mean, try to wrap your mind around that for a second. The last 13 years, they have won that division 9 times. The Buffs are about 8.5-point favorites right now. I went and took a look at that because I was curious where the odds makers had it. So a little more than a touchdown, but it did feel to me, James, like Deion was setting the fan base up that 1-0 is not a sure thing. And I think that would take a lot of the wind out of the sails if you lose to North Dakota State at Folsom Field, Thursday Night Football, ESPN, start 0-1, and let's be honest, become the punchline in the country because no one's giving you credit that North Dakota State's darn good. They're all going to ha-ha laugh at Coach Prime and the Buffs for losing to an FCS school.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, the opening game is always scary in college football, right? You don't have a preseason. You haven't had a chance to kind of, get some of the butterflies out and work out the kinks and all the rest of that stuff. So it's always a little bit of a crapshoot. Then you throw in the fact that now with, the transfer portal and everything else, you really have no idea what these teams are, what they're going to look like, what they're going to do. I mean, you can study film and check out, hey, here's what the coaching staff likes to run and all the rest of it, but you're kind of having to just figure it out on the fly. So you want to lay up from a standpoint of, hey, we have so much more talent in this team. We can win in spite of those mysteries. The Buffs have more talent than North Dakota State, but I don't think it's a huge gap. That's the best team at that level by a wide margin. And, the way college football is now, and it hasn't totally changed to this, but, a lot of the big schools, look at CU as an example, they're often trying to bring in guys through the portal out of other schools as much as they're going out and trying to get high school kids when they're recruiting. So those high school kids have to kind of do it in stages now, unless you're just an off-the-chart 5-star kind of kid. So North Dakota State is a place where people, really talented players go, knowing that A, they could get seen there. Carson Wentz went there, Trey Lance went there. Or B, it is a prime place to go shine and get yourself to an Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, whoever. So it's going to be a tough one. It is a classic trap game to start the season.
Yeah, and I think an ounce of truth that he was mad at Rick George, right? Like he could say it with a smile. He can say it jokingly. I think he would prefer that Alcorn State was coming to Boulder, not North Dakota State. Let's go rapid fire on a few of these other ones. A lot of people up in arms about a ton of praise for Pat Shurmur from Coach Prime. Obviously, Shurmur's tenure as Broncos offensive coordinator was a disaster. He moved on from Sean Lewis midway through the year last year to bring in Shurmur. Is this a move to make Shedeur look better or make the Buffs look better? And does Shurmur really have anything left in the tank? I mean, this guy was a disaster in the NFL, but according to Coach Prime, he's this phenomenal offensive mind that's going to be great for his son in Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's got a ton of NFL experience, so that's not a bad thing. That experience wasn't necessarily great, especially his 2 stints as a head coach and his stint in Denver. I kind of look at that, though, of like, man, he was a part of that Vic Fangio mess. And, you know, they're going with Teddy because they're trying to start the season off 3-0. And if they don't beat the Giants, the Jags, and the Jets, Vic's going to get fired. It was just a mess all around. And in New York and in Cleveland, it's not like he was, gifted with amazing quarterbacks. So I'm going to give Pat Shurmur the benefit of the doubt here of let's see what he can do when he has a quarterback that a lot of people are ranking as the top guy in all of college football. He's got a plethora of talent on that side of the ball. He's been around forever. So I'm going to give him a chance here. I really am. I'm open-minded. I'm not going to, say, well, I couldn't make it work with Teddy and Drew, so it ain't going to work in Boulder. Let's find out. I'm cautiously optimistic, Will.
All right. I'm not as forgiving, I guess, as you for what happened in Denver. But we'll see. It's new era. Shedeur Sanders talking about how the roster is so much better this year than it was last year. You wrote about this at denversports.com. Is that just July optimism, or do we think the roster is better? And is Shedeur on to something here that, hey, he remade it once, and then his dad remade it a second time this past offseason?
Yeah, you can't fix all the problems in one offseason. They fixed a bunch between 2022 and 2023. Now it's like, okay, where are the rest of the holes? And primarily it's up front on both sides of the ball. I mean, they were the worst team in the country at giving up sacks, 56. They were the worst team in the country running the football. I think they had 837 yards or something like that the entire season, which is just anemic. And defensively, they couldn't stop anybody. They gave up. They were in the bottom 10 in yards and in points allowed. It's amazing they won 4 games, to be honest with you. And most of that was because they couldn't block, and then they couldn't stop people on defense, and that was up front. So if they improved, look, I'll take Shedeur's word for it that they improved at every position except probably quarterback, because he's still there. He's still there. They don't need to improve there. They don't need to. But it really matters the 5 guys up front on offense and the guys up front on defense. That's what matters.
And then one more quote that got a lot of headlines. Dion talking about it's a 12-team playoff now, but he wanted to get in at 4, but he'll still just be happy to get in. You got to love Coach Prime's confidence. But also, I mean, Dion is basically saying he expects to be in the 12-team college football playoff this year. Wouldn't expect anything different from Coach Prime, but still, that's quite a bullseye to put on your back in July for a team that won 4 games last year.
Yeah, no doubt. And a team that when they went and played Oregon just got boat raced. Like, I think, look, you're not going to hit big goals if you don't set big goals. So I'm fine with that. I think that's a good way to go about it. I think you should go into every season thinking that way. But is that a realistic goal? Probably not. Listen, Will, it wouldn't shock me if the Buffs went 4-8 again. It wouldn't shock me if they were in the playoff. I have no idea. I mean, that's part of what makes it fun. And I think the fact that the playoffs expanded to 12 teams, it allows you to have a little bit of growth over the course of the season. It's kind of been my negative with college football, right? Like if you stub your toe week 1 on August 29th, in the old system, especially when it was 2 teams, you were done. Like you were just, it was over. I love the America's games that they do on NFL Network about the Super Bowl champs because there's always a story, right? There's the ups and the downs and the things they have to overcome and how they have to piece it together. College football used to just be, you got to run the table. You got to be perfect from the get-go. This allows for a little bit of stub in the toe. You could probably be 9-3, 10-3 if you win the Big 12 title game and get in. So it gives them some opportunities to kind of figure this thing out a little bit early in the season. I love the lofty goal. I just, I'm not going to plan my holidays around it.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget the 5, 6, 7, and 8 seeds get a game on campus. That's where I want to be, James. I don't want to be 1 through 4. I don't want to be 9 through 12. I want to be 5 through 8. Playoff game at Folsom Field. I just can't imagine the atmosphere, the ticket prices, first ever playoff games on campus. It would just be too much fun. All right, this show goes by so fast, so we have to move on to the Denver Broncos. Camp Stidham rolling on in Texas. You and I had some fun last night on Denver Sports Tonight on 104.3 The Fan, going through the 12 guys that were there. But I want to talk about my column today on denversports.com, which this feels like a little bit of a trap, perhaps, that Jarrett Stidham is laying for Sean Payton. He's not the people's champ like Von Miller called himself back in the day, but he might be the players' champ. Everything we're hearing is that Stidham's the leader in that locker room. Everyone loves Stiddy. Sean Payton can't fall into the trap of doing what the locker room wants best. He has to do what's best for the franchise from now and now on, and that's throw Bo Nix into the fire in week 1. Don't know if you got a chance to check out the column, but sort of your thoughts on my notion that Jarrett Stidham is sort of setting up Sean Payton. Hey, you have no other choice but to start me. I'm the guy everyone in this room likes. This isn't a championship locker room. This isn't like 2016 when Cougs had to go with Simeon over Lynch because Aqib Talib and DeMarcus Ware and Chris Harris Jr. and Von Miller would have rioted. The guys in this room don't have those kind of resumes. Do you like my logic here that Payton can't fall for this trap, really, that Jarrett Stidham is either intentionally or unintentionally kind of setting?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, I think some of the narratives coming out about Jarrett Stidham are just laughable, right? Like, did we not see what happened in the last 2 games of last year? Like, where were all these leadership qualities? Where were all these things? I mean, and then now he's just this super popular guy in the locker room, and he's doing this, he's doing that. I'm just like, but the reality is he's a journeyman quarterback. Like, the locker room cares who can play and who can't play, right? So the Broncos had to go with Trevor Siemian over Paxton Lynch, not just because Trevor Siemian was more professional, not because he was just a cut up in the locker room and everybody loved him, because he was the only one of the 2 who could play, and he could barely play. Like, Paxton Lynch couldn't play at all. He had a big arm but didn't know what the heck he was doing. So, the locker room, that's the one thing that'll lose him, is if it's clear that one guy's better than the other and you're playing the other guy for the wrong reasons, right? Either he was a high draft pick, you paid him a lot of money, nepotism, whatever the case may be. I just don't see Jarrett Stidham blowing everybody away like, oh, my God, we have to play this guy. The only reason to play a veteran, and Jarrett Stidham started 4 games, is that right? The only reason to start a veteran, quote unquote, over your first round pick is if that guy gives you a chance to make the playoffs, right? It's Favre over Rodgers. It's Rodgers over Love. It's Alex Smith over Patrick Mahomes. Like, the Chiefs won the AFC West the year Alex Smith started and Patrick Mahomes didn't play. Like, they were a playoff team. You will lose your locker room if you cost veterans a chance to go to the postseason, because that doesn't roll around all the time. If the decision you're making is like, well, we might go 7-10 with Stiddy, we might go 5-12 with Bo because he's going to make some mistakes that are going to cost us a couple of games. Who cares? Like, what's the difference? Like, that is just silly to me. I know you want to win every possible game, but really the line of delineation, Will, is, are you a playoff contender or are you not? If you're not a legitimate playoff contender with Jarrett Stidham, and you're not, then play the kid. I would play him from the get-go. I think they're setting us up, though, for Jarrett Stidham playing at least the first 4 weeks.
Well, you are speaking the truth, my friend. All those words I wrote for denversports.com, you agreed with. And for once, we're on the same page. Let's keep it rolling. Get to Peyton Manning's new show on Netflix. Receiver premiered on Wednesday, James. I don't know if you got a chance to fire up an episode or 2 yet. This is obviously the sequel to Quarterback. This time they're following around pass catchers and the star-studded cast. So I'll give you a little background. I watched episode 1 last night. I don't want to give many spoilers, but the 5 receivers are Amon-Ra St. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, and George Kittle. He's a tight end, but he's still a pass catcher. Kind of the wrinkle here. Episode 1 only focused on 3 of the 5 guys. We got the 2 49ers and we got Amon-Ra St. Brown. James, this show is so well done. Again, I won't spoil it, but you learn so much about these guys that I didn't know. Amon-Ra St. Brown may be like my new favorite player in the NFL. He is awesome. George Kittle's exactly what you expect, party animal. And then Deebo Samuel is just a freak. I mean, we knew that, but like you just look at the way this guy works, and he's just a freak. Have you checked out receiver yet? How excited are you to dive in? And how cool is it that this is Peyton Manning's second chapter, bringing this amazing football content to fans, even though he's no longer playing?
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. It's next up in the queue. They don't do queues anymore, but if I had one, it would be next up. I can't wait to check it out. Quarterbacks was awesome. I love the behind the scenes stuff. I love the fact that you get to learn more about these guys, see their personalities. You know, we learned a lot last year about Mahomes and Kirk Cousins and
Mariota.
Yep. I mean, the fact that Marcus Mariota last year on the show just quit. He just quits on the Falcons. It blew my mind. Kirk Cousins, the nicest guy ever, but like such a dork. You couldn't hide it. And it's fine. He just totally was. And then we also learned that Patrick Mahomes, you know, we learned a lot about him for one thing, but the fact that he works with all these people away from the game, right? Non-Chiefs people, whether he's working out or nutritionists or whatever, it was a light bulb for the people who were criticizing Russell Wilson for doing similar kind of things. So yeah, we're going to learn some stuff. Did Amon-Ra St. Brown, did he work out with his dad? Because his dad is okay. His dad works out. Amon-Ra St. Brown and his brother, I forget his name. I've seen some of that stuff before. That guy is a freak. I can't wait to watch what that guy's putting him through.
Well, he was like a 2-time Mr. Olympiad or Mr. Universe or something. They showed some of the old footage. It's just awesome. Like I said, he's one of my new favorites. And do you remember George Kittle 3 touchdown against the Cowboys last year on Sunday Night Football? Oh my gosh. They show a ton from that game. It was George's 30th birthday. His wife, okay, I'm kind of spoiling. His wife flew in a bunch of his friends, and the footage on the party bus after the game. I'll just say you got to see it. It's excellent. It is too much fun. So,
can't wait.
We can't get out of here without talking a little Jamal Murray. Played last night in the exhibition game, USA versus Canada. James Jamal was pedestrian, 2 of 8, 5 points, no assists. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander didn't do much either. The Americans beat Canada by 14. My takeaway was Jamal looked kind of slow. He was getting crushed on social media. Hey, this is Jamal Murray without Nikola Jokic. I mean, he did not stand out at all as this contract extension looms. Listen, it's just an exhibition, so I'm not going to focus too much on the game. But after the game, Troy Rank, our old buddy, asks him about a potential contract extension, and Jamal kind of blows us off, and we'll get there when we get there. He didn't want to talk about it, but what do you make of his lackluster performance last night and not really having much to say to Troy about this deal that apparently has been in front of him for several weeks now?
Yeah, I mean, look, if I'm Jamal Murray, I'm sprinting to wherever I need to sprint to sign that contract. I think, look, I'm all for self-confidence, and I think he's betting on himself and thinks, hey, if I'm all NBA next year, it could be another $100 million on this deal. I think there's also the possibility that there's a reality check with people around the league of like, hey, man, this guy is the ultimate byproduct of playing with a great player. He's played with a guy who's won 3 of the last 4 MVPs. That's lifted all boats, right? Jokic has made everybody look better. I don't know if anybody falls in that category more than Jamal Murray. And I'm not trying to rip the guy, but Will, 2 years in a row in the playoffs, the way the Timberwolves, one of the best defensive teams in the league, chose to try to slow down the Nuggets was pick up Jamal Murray full court, make him work 90 feet. And we saw that his lack of speed, the fact that you said he looked slow last night, that's just who Jamal is. He's not a rocket ship coming up the court. If you try to press a lot of point guards, they're going to burn you. They'll be playing 5-on-4 in that kind of situation. He's kind of a plotter. He's kind of a little methodical. I think the guy has a chance to cost himself some money here when all of a sudden the reality check comes on for teams around the league of what Jamal Murray is. And maybe I'm just soured on him because the whole situation, and I think he's overly sensitive, and Calvin Booth called him out for being out of shape. You know what? If they're putting in a clause, and we don't know if it is, but the rumor is there's a workout clause in that contract, that's on you, Jamal. That's because you're not in shape. The Kyler Murray, hey, you better study your film, That's on Kyler Murray for being too interested in video games as opposed to being a student of the game. You can have it rub you the wrong way, but you also have to look in the mirror and realize, hey, it's time to be more of a professional. And Jamal Murray would be better. He would be better and he would be quicker if he was lighter and more in shape. I think last night was just another example of that.
I would love to know what Calvin Booth thought watching this game last night, James. I would. I understand it's an exhibition, but a lot of the Americans looked pretty darn good, and I get it. It was in Vegas, and Barack Obama was there. It was a star-studded cast of folks that were in the stands, but didn't look like Jamal Murray was at his best. We will be fascinating to watch it moving forward. Appreciate everyone tuning in to Coffee Break. For James and Will, Rachel, we'll see you tomorrow.